Namaste. We're the Shaman and the Mermaid, and this is your astrological forecast for June 5th through June 20th, though we will talk about themes that will go throughout the summer. And let's just kick right into it. We have a Sagittarius full moon, as if that wouldn't be enough, and it is a lunar eclipse. This is on Friday, June 5th. And if you're looking out your window tomorrow, or if it's today, whatever day you're watching this report, to see if you can catch the lunar eclipse, you can't see it if you're here in the United States because it'll be at 1:25 p.m. Mountain Standard Time, which means the moon hasn't risen yet for you. But we will feel the energy of the eclipse, and this is the first of 3 eclipses. It's totally normal for 2 eclipses to happen in a row. 3 is a little more rare, and we have 3 eclipses this season to our theme.
Right. So the theme is let go of what you think you know and feel what is real. And that sounds maybe like let go of what you think you know, because there's a lot of room for us to be in error of our judgments right now. And there's a lot of room for us to have a need to reassess, reevaluate, and relearn some things that we thought were right and true, and maybe we've been erroneous. We as the collective and we as individuals as well. So let go of what you think you know. And then the second part of that is feel what is real, because there's a big part of once we let go of or unlearn what we have acquired throughout our lifetime, inherited wisdom and teachings and knowings from our family, from our government, from our religions, from society itself, maybe what we've been told and what we've learned or what we think we know is erroneous. And so how do you know what's right? Well, the second part of the theme, feel what is real, listen to our intuition. Listen to what your heart is telling you. There's an embedded, implicit wisdom. If I went into yoga teachings right now, this is the Jnana Maya Kosha, that is a deep layer within yourself that knows the teachings, that knows the truth, that knows the guidance and the way. And that is what we need to feel. Feel what is real. Trust yourself, trust your intuition. How does this theme play into all that's playing out in the cosmology? We're going to download that for you as best we can, unpack it. I want to start by saying I think the month of June, this is my personal opinion, I'm feeling what is real for me, that the month of June into July and August is going to be intense. If we think what we have seen from the onset of COVID in 2020 back in March, and really back in January, of course, but when it hit us with the impact of the crisis in March, we thought, oh my gosh, we're still feeling it. Our business is still closed. Oh my gosh, this is intense. And then George Floyd and Ahmaud and the protesting and the civil unrest and the racial tension and everything coming to a head on that level. Oh my gosh. And then the whole political turmoil with our presidency election coming up in November. And there's a lot of energy, positive and negative, flowing around that. And so that's another, oh my gosh. Well, we're just putting our big toe into 2020's oh my gosh, is what I have to say about it. And I'm not to be a doomsdayer, and I'm not trying to put more fear into the ether that's already there. But I'm saying this so that we can have a leg up, to be ready to take the best steps towards betterment. Because even though it's going to get more intense, this is just the crumbling of structure that needs to dissolve. And what's going to rise up in its place is the new life form. That it's like after the forest burns and those green little shoots come up under the charred ground. That will rise, that will come, and we will see that soon. But in the meantime, we might need to deconstruct what we think is truth and what we've been taking in. And we'll go right into why we're saying this. And it starts, to me, it starts a big player in this astrology report is Mars. Do you want to talk about Mars?
Mars is in the sign of Pisces right now, and for this eclipse on June 5th and the eclipse on summer solstice on the 20th, Mars will be squaring both eclipses. And when Mars or anything is squaring the eclipses, it means it's squaring the axis of evolution. That sounds pretty good. That sounds like a t-shirt. We're at the axis of evolution now.
We totally are.
We always are, but now it's like bubbled to the top. We're always on the axis, but we're on the razor's edge and we're aware of it. The axis of evolution is the moon's nodes are the points where eclipses happen, and this report we get to actually see or feel right when they're happening. There's a north node and a south node. The first eclipse is the south node. Sagittarius, as Katrina said, has to do with purifying things of truth. The second eclipse on the solstice, which is a solar eclipse, is on the north node, where we want to go. It's being curious, adaptable, and Gemini energy. And Mars is right in between it. It's a T-square. And Mars is going to hold that tension, by the way, along with the planet Neptune in Pisces. When something squares the axis of evolution, it's like you're at a crossroads and you need to make a decision. You have to go one way or the other. And the crossroads, to make it even more tense, is one way is the past, and that past has to be purified and healed and moved out of the shadows to go forward into the future. And we can't skip this step. If we attempt to skip this step, it will continue to hold us at that tension point until there's further crisis that forces a decision.
So Mars, just take the personification of these planets to help let this sink in. Mars is the warrior, the aggressor, the initiator, the fighter, and the take charge. And it's squaring on this axis of evolution, as Michael said, which the North and South Node in Gemini and Sagittarius. It's squaring truth. The warrior is squaring truth, which we're seeing right now. We're seeing this with the Black Lives Matters marches. We're seeing it with the racial tension and the police brutality being requested to take a look at the truth around that. This is Mars squaring that Sagittarian node. And then the other side of it is Mars squaring in Gemini, which is information seeking. So this is a little bit of where the theme comes in, is let go of what you think you know. We think we know everything about COVID because where did we get this information? The CDC, the WHO, Trump, your local government, they've all told you what it is. And then when you put your mask on in 90-degree weather and nobody is around you, but you're supposed to be wearing it outside, how does that feel? Does that feel like truth to you? To have that mask on, to be recycling that breath that you're taking, your intake valve and your exhaust valve, as Michael calls it, is in the same place and they're circulating? I mean, I'm pretty sure that I remember that in health class, we learned about suicide prevention, and to be aware that if you funnel your exhaust pipe into your car and you sit in it, you will die. That's a way that you could commit suicide. I remember learning that in health class. Well, to me, putting on a mask in 90-degree weather when there's no one else around is a way to commit some form of a death to myself, because I'm breathing in my exhale. So that is letting go of what I think I know to be truth and feeling what is real. I'm taking my mask off when I am all by myself outside and breathing fresh air. That feels like truth to me. That feels like what is right. So that Mars squaring the North and South Node is asking us to just feel what is truth. Feel what is truth, not go research it in Google, because who's Google anyway? Just feel your intuitive self on that and trust yourself on that. Now, also squaring at the same time as Mars with the nose is the sun and the moon with Mars. So how we express ourselves, our ego, our presentation, what you think you see when you look at me and how I'm talking right now, that's my sun energy. What you don't know about me is my moon energy. That's how I talk to myself, how I say things to myself internally. That's the first thoughts I have when I wake up in the morning. It's my feeling self. It's my memories. It's my emotional body. Well, my outward expression of myself, my sun, and my inward expression of myself, my moon, are squaring with Mars, the initiator. So I am in, and Mars is in Pisces. So Michael made a beautiful point when we were talking about this prior to this report. We were saying Mars in Pisces is like, the Mars is a fiery sign. It's like, I'm in this big ocean. I just want to get out. I want to, jump on my horse and go. And instead, it's kind of being watered down, some of this fire. And it's feeling a little bit out of sorts and feeling maybe a little bit, panicky can be a way for it to look, because what happens when you're in water and you don't feel comfortable swimming? We start flailing around and we might splash too much, and that makes the situation even worse. If we would slow down and just tread that water, we could easily stay afloat and keep our head above the level of the water line. So Mars in Pisces is already kind of in this agitated panic mode, wanting to be able to do its fiery energy, but it can't because it's in the water. It's squaring with how we feel about ourselves internally and externally. I think this is a huge piece of us not knowing where to go, what to do, how to be. And so maybe we're showing up at the protests and we're marching down the streets, but it's feeling kind of uncertain. We don't have leadership. I was watching the protests, some of my friends live streaming it down there the last couple of nights, and I've been so appreciative for this footage because that is real. I'm seeing it firsthand real from somebody carrying their phone through the crowd, and it's not been dubbed or taped out from any kind of media type. It's just straight up, it's truth. And I'm watching these protestings going on, and there's not a lot of leadership. There's one gentleman here in Denver that did a great job, Neil Yarbrough, that was leading the protest with a megaphone. He had a plan. He was keeping it peaceful. He was directing people to say and do the things in a very peaceful and demonstrative way of how we want this to look. But whenever he wasn't leading or wasn't on the mic or wasn't doing his thing, it was kind of chaotic. And even though it stayed for the most part pretty peaceful, there was kind of this, Mars in the water kind of feeling, like, I don't know where to go next. Should we go down Pearl Street Mall, or should we go over to the Capitol? And it wasn't this organized, structured leadership for the most part, even though Denver, I'm proud of you. You did a great job with the peaceful protests. So that's an example of Mars and Pisces with how we are doing. There's another square on this same day of this lunar eclipse that's going to open the portal for the summer, and this is Mercury versus Chiron. And I say versus because square is often that contentious or challenging energy. You want to talk about Chiron and Mercury?
Chiron is your wounds, what you feel is not working in your life, what you feel is a constant samskara karma that repeats itself, same bad relationship, same problem with money, same depression, and Mercury is wanting to communicate about it. And this is accentuated by that Mars square. Mars is like our willpower and our ability, makes us feel like we have the ability to do something, and we're feeling like we can't. We're swirling in the ocean and we feel our wounds coming up. Chiron is in Aries for everybody right now, so this can feel like powerlessness, it can feel like anger, it can feel like frustration, and squaring Mercury in Cancer, it's like I can't talk about it, or if I can't get my words out clearly, or they come out frustrated, or the way I say it's not the way I meant it. And there's a lot of this churning going on, and this is coming right with the eclipse. When the eclipse happens, it is meant to cut energies, but it has to pull them to the surface to cut them, and so there's a lot of tension around eclipses. And the Monday following this whole eclipse, there's an intense aspect with the moon. The moon, which was just being eclipsed by the Earth, is then reactivating this Saturn, Pluto, Jupiter activation that happened in January that's affecting us all year and really for 3 years. And the moon's going to hit each one of those points, Pluto first, then Jupiter, and then Saturn, and reactivate this. And to go further with that, Jupiter is going to conjoin Pluto at the end of the month, and this is the second pass that Jupiter and Pluto come together. Jupiter and Pluto is exposing the big underbelly of what is in the hidden world. The shadow of our finances, of our health, of whatever is being suppressed. When Jupiter hits that point, it's like, let's get a big spotlight and have a look, and the moon is like, how do I feel about this? And then Saturn's coming in, and there's rules and restriction. And to add to all this, the planet Eris, the goddess of war and contention, is squaring this whole thing. So I jumped ahead to this aspect, but I think this eclipse from Friday to Monday is going to potentially have lots of intensity and combustibility in it.
Absolutely. And remember, if you were following these reports, or any astrologers, they've been talking about Pluto, Saturn, Jupiter. I've been talking about it in my yoga classes. We've been talking about it on these reports clear back to January of 2018. We've been forewarning that 2020 is going to be an intense year because of Pluto, Saturn, and Jupiter in these really tight alignments, in these what we'd call conjunctions, and they're just moving back and forth across each other, and it's going to continue, as Michael said, throughout. So this is it. This is what we've been saying is happening. Now, astrology isn't going to predict. We couldn't have predicted COVID through astrology. We couldn't have predicted the George Floyd retaliation marches, which in a sense we could, because racism is so prevalent still in 2020. We could have assumed something could come to the head, and we could also make some assumptions there too, that we'll see some more around gender equality and education reform, healthcare reform. These are all broken systems that we have. So we can assume or expect that that will come to a head too, but you can't predict it, and you don't know when it's going to show up. But you can tell by the astrology that certain things are brewing to bring these pieces to a head, to make it be seen and felt. And that's what this evolutionary axis is talking about. It's truth and information, and demanding it. It's demanding it for not only the collective world, globe, all the peoples, but for you as an individual in your own specific life as well. It goes both. And it's what we see for the world is one thing, and it affects us all. And what we see on our individual needs for truth and honesty and information reveal is perhaps different, but it'll fit right into the pieces. So this is, again, the theme. Let go of what you think you know and feel what is real. This is the time to start trusting your intuitive body. You have one, we all have one, and we need to tap into it more. So then we keep cruising. January 11th, the sun is going to square Neptune.
June 11th.
Oh, sorry, when I said
okay.
January, it's a J word. June 11th, the sun is going to square Neptune. You want to talk about that one?
Sure, and I'm going to wrap 3 days into one. Sun squares Neptune on the 11th, the moon, half moon in Pisces, where the sun and Neptune will be doing that square, will be in that same spot on Friday the 12th, and then Mars will come and join the party and conjoin Neptune on the 13th. 11, 12, 13th, it's all about Pisces energy. And Sun square Neptune is potentially lots of confusion. Our astrologer friend and mentor Rick Levine talked about this, and he said it's like a tidal pool for the ocean when you can't tell if the tide's going in or out, and it's dangerous waters to make an assumption to go in. If you start swimming one way and be like, I think I know which way the tide's going, and then suddenly it's going the other way, you're going to get swept out. And so Neptune, Pisces, Mars, and Sun, when they're in that swirl, of the energy, it's confusion, it's not able to predict, it can be delusion, it's not solid ground, it's kind of movement of energy. And so here is a good place to be able to quickly move with the energies and not make any fast, rash decisions.
So we basically get out of the lunar eclipse, but let me say, we're not going to get out of the eclipse
We're
energy.
between two.
We're between three, really. We're, you know, when you get, there's a third one in July that we'll talk to a little bit, but since this is predominantly the June report, we're focusing on the first two. But there's a third eclipse. We are in eclipse season, and it's intense. So that first one, June 5th, it rolls into what Michael's talking about, the squares with the big trio, onto June 8th. We get a little bit of reprieve on the astrology playing on us. And then Thursday, June 11th through Saturday, June 13th, we have this crazy square with Sun and Neptune, and then Mars and Neptune together. Mars and Neptune in Pisces together on that Saturday, the June 13th. So that's just like super. Remember I said Mars is swimming in the water going, just get me out, get me out. Well, he gets to get out, and look out when he does, because that's coming in this report too. But just watch yourself and let go of what you think you know and feel. So feel where you need to be at this time. So this takes us up to the 13th. Now let's roll into the following.
Well, guess what? It's retrograde season to add to the eclipse season, and Mercury goes retrograde. This is the one that's most clear to people when it changes direction, because Mercury moves fast. It's like you're in your race car, you hit the brakes and throw it in reverse, and it's like... Along with that, we have Pluto, Jupiter, Saturn, Venus, all retrograde, and then soon to be Neptune in a few days after that. But when Mercury goes retrograde, particularly at this time, it's going to be felt. And Mercury's going retrograde through the sign of Cancer this year, or this time. The next retrograde this season will happen over election time. And so this is setting the seed for the future retrograde. And Mercury retrograde in Cancer is all about feelings and what am I sensing and what's my intuitive self all about. It's let go of what you think you know and feel what it's real. Mercury is the mind, that's what I think I know, and Cancer is what I feel.
And so when we're in that, remember retrogrades, and this is an unprecedented amount of planets in retrograde. We have so many planets in retrograde. That trio, that whole big badass trio of Jupiter, Pluto, Saturn, all retrograde. Venus, retrograde. As Michael said, Mercury's going retrograde on the 17th of June, and Mars will be going retrograde towards the end of summer of June, all right?
September.
September.
He goes into Aries in June.
And who am I forget? Neptune is going to go retrograde. That's the one at the end of, towards the end of June on the 22nd. So what does that mean, retrograde? And we try to explain it as best we can because it's a kind of esoteric concept. The planets aren't going backwards, they just have a slower turn around the elliptical. But that slowing of their energy slows things down. So any of the RE words come into effect here, like review, rewind, recalibrate, reset, relax, reconsider. And so that is part of letting go of what you think you know, of maybe let's just go back and look things over a little bit. And with that retrograde for Mercury, the communicator, in the sign of Cancer, are deep internal emotions, like review how you handle your feelings on things. Are we reactionary? Are we defensive? Are we martyrs? Are we victims? Do we go into victim role? Are we critical and judgmental? So this gives us a chance to really slow that down and let the reaction, which is an RE word, slow itself down too. And just kind of, if you can, I like to think of one of our favorite things to do is go floating down Clear Creek in golden. And we'd get these big inner tubes blown up. Us and half of Denver like to do this. And you just take this slow, meandering, little lazy float down the river. This is a great time to do that. It's slow your roll. Just get in your little floater and, you know, go with the flow, feel things out, watch out for the rocks. You got to navigate a little bit, but for the most part, just trust the process and let it carry you and not be reactionary. When you start to panic, when you see these big rocks, you're going to flip yourself over. You got to like go with the dips in the water. Every now and then you bump your ass on the bottom of the river, but that's okay. You're not going to die for that. So then after Mercury goes retrograde, and you want to tell the other retrogrades you mentioned, another retrograde is during the election time.
Mercury's next retrograde will be October 13th through November 3rd, and it goes direct on election day. This retrograde goes from June 17th through July 12th, and Cancer also has everything to do with home. So this might be a time to, I'm not saying stay home, but cultivate home life, get into that area of, you know, taking care of your home environment and feeling what's real there.
Cancer is the crab. It's the sign of the crab, and the crab carries its home on its back, and it can go in and just kind of tuck in when it's feeling like things are a little dangerous. And so, you know, kind of go in and feel your feels in that safety and of home. Now, I want to be clear that I am not advocating for not speaking your voice, not saying what you need to say. I'm not saying shut your mouth. If I want to be down there protesting, and you might see me down there soon, I'm not advocating for silence. That's not it at all. But watch out for your reaction to something, and make sure that you're really clear, that you feel what is real before you just start spouting. Because have you ever done that thing where something comes through Facebook or Instagram, one of your social medias, TikTok or whatever, and you're like, yeah, that's so cool, and you didn't really check it out to see everything that was being said or promoted or displayed in the video or the whole read of it, and you're like, this is excellent, share, and you just send it back out into the world. Reactionary, your first instinct on that was, or your first read was like, this is great, I'm gonna go. And then suddenly you get some comments in your little share, and it's like, why are you sharing this? I don't agree with that, blah, blah, blah. And you go back and you actually read what you shared or watch the whole entire video, and you're like, oh shizzle, I don't even believe this. This isn't, I didn't know it went on to say this, and you have to try to reel it back or delete it or make an apology like, sorry, this isn't what I thought it was. So we get reactionary, we're quick. This is not the time to be in that mode. Just really pause, like think things through, review it, read, that's an Ari word, read, learn, know things from an intuitive, well-researched, there's another Ari word, place, and not just take it for verbatim. That's why we're in trouble now as a society, is because we just take things verbatim. Whatever authority tells us what it is, we say, okay, yes ma'am, yes sir, that must be the truth, because you're an authority on it, so you know. And even when it balks against every part of our being, we still do it. Walt Whitman says, if it insults your soul, dismiss it. Beautiful plan right now. Okay, so keep cruising. We got a little bit more to do. June's an intense one if you haven't already picked up. So we had our first eclipse on June 5th. Now we're rolling into June 20th, which is the winter or summer solstice, winter solstice if you're down under. Summer solstice, the longest day of the year. We're going to have a solar eclipse in Cancer, and this is the second of the eclipses that we'll experience. I want to talk about that.
We'll just give a little taste, because this will be in the major next report. This solar eclipse happens right when the sun goes into Cancer. It's on the North Node, and it's all about needing to find what is truth, needing to find what is real, but be adaptable. It's still about going with what you feel. Cancer is a very feeling sign, and it's happening in the same sign that Mercury is going retrograde through. So the eclipse and the retrograde of Mercury are about the energy of feeling and sensing and knowing yourself. That's what Cancer's about. Mars will be squaring this eclipse still, and Mars will be getting right to the end of his travel through Pisces. And Mars is about to explode into the sign of Aries on June 27th. And this is something that astrologers have also been watching that's going to make 2020, it's an eye-opener. People are like, the big dogs are having their alignment of Jupiter, Saturn, and Pluto, but everybody's like, once Mars goes into Aries, it's going to be, energy is going to be released. Hopefully it's in a controlled, determined, well thought out way. But if not, there's been people saying it's potential for conflict, for war, for bad actions taken. And Mars will be in Aries all the way through January. This is unusual. It's going to be there for 2 months. It retrogrades for 2 months and then goes forward for 2 months in the sign of Aries. And Mars is totally empowered in the sign of Aries, and it is fired up right now.
So usually Mars is in a sign for about 6 weeks. It's another fast-moving planet, like Mercury. You know, they're the inner planets. And so it usually would cruise through Aries, and we would just have to kind of hunker down for a month and a half or so. Nope. Goes back again, then goes back again. So as Michael said, 6 months it will be in this sign of Aries. It's home sign, fire on fire. And remember the analogy we used at the very beginning. Mars has been in Pisces, and he's just been like, get me out of this ocean. I'm not comfortable in all this water. And he's a warrior. He's a fighter. So he's been treading it, and he's been swimming. He's going to climb up onto shore, and he's going to go, roar! And it's all going to be crazy town if that direction, that leadership isn't in place. If that fire of the warrior isn't being put into right action, it could be, as Michael said, destruction, war, upheaval. And that takes us all the way through to the beginning of 2021.
Good luck.
So remember when I was talking about the protesting downtown, and when the leader, Neil Yarbrough, was having the mic and leading the march, everything was in a really good direction. There was leadership. There was Mars in charge. That's a good use of when Mars comes to shore into the hot land of Aries. If there is somebody like that taking charge, there could be a lot of good done. Because if you take somebody who's got their willpower, their voice of reason, their strength, their tenacity, fighting for something that's good. And when I say fighting, not necessarily with weapons, but with words and with wisdom and with leadership. If they're fighting for something good, that could rally everybody. And all of this time we can be sitting here saying, okay, what is truth? We could be researching, reviewing, who is this leadership that we want to follow? I'm going to use this plug right now because a lot of people are in different states are having an opportunity for voting right now. Please vote. Do your research. Find out who is this kind of Mars in charge person who can take us out of this craziness that we are in. We are in crazy times. This is not the way we are supposed to collaborate and coexist. We are doing something definitely counterintuitive to what the human race is capable of. So research, review who these people are that we can put into place. And then again, vote. If you're not voting for your primaries right now, vote for sure in November, and make sure that you are picking somebody who can lead us in a good and right way. Somebody other than who we have currently would be my suggestion. Now, the next, we'll tease ya, the next eclipse that is in the 3 is on the 4th of July. I have a lot of trepidation around this particular celebration of our country's birth this year. I feel like that eclipse is going to do a lot of cutting out. Remember, eclipse is the Greek word for to clip or to cut. And as Michael said, you know, to get that cut, you have to kind of pull it so you can get that little, there's tension around it. I'm not going to be too surprised if from the first eclipse on Solstice, the longest day of the year, to the second eclipse where we're celebrating our freedom, home of the free and the brave, that we might feel that tension and some cutting happening on that time. Maybe it's a good time to get away from large crowds of people. Maybe it's a good time to get to the mountains and do some reviewing and reflecting on what you hold to be your truths, your own sovereign truths. That's really what it is what is your feeling and sense of what is right, what is good. And, you know, let's not listen to what our parents have told us for a few moments, and let's not listen to what the government has told us for a few moments, and let's not listen to what our religions have told us for a few moments, and not listen to what our teachers and educators have told us for a few moments. Not all of it is wrong, I'm not saying that, but just hush it for a few moments and listen to what your own heart has to say is a truth, because it knows you know. To me, this is the evolution of that access point of North and South Node and Gemini and Sagittarius, is knowing what is truth and real for our own selves and making that determination in our own Mars way. We're talking about Mars in the collective, how that could look as big protesting, riots, wars, fighting. But you can have your own Mars influence. Be your own warrior for your own truths. To me, that's it for this time. It's strong. It's big. This is intense, and it's not going to pick up for any time soon. It keeps on rolling out through the whole summer. Our teacher, again, he mentioned Rick Levine. We have a couple astrology teachers we follow, and they're all kind of in the same little pod of whales that swim together in the ocean, the same tribe, the same family. So Kai Pacha, Rick Levine, Soul, we like Maurice Fernandez. They're all evolutionary astrologers. And Rick Levine said, this summer is like remedial school. You know, when you flunked English at the end of the year, of the school year, and you have to go to summer school and retake the whole thing over and relearn and review, and it's much more excruciating than if you just would have done it right the first time. This is summer school. This is that remedial relearning of things that we have not learned correctly the first time through. So it can be a little bit intense. We want to be outside playing and frolicking and having fun like we typically do in the summertime, boating around and doing all the things. This is a little different summer. And just if you go into it knowing that this is a time to relearn some things, let go of what we think we know and feel what is real, it can be a much more productive summer for us from that standpoint. At least that's how we feel about it right now.
Thanks for tuning in, and we'll come back at you with more eclipse and retrograde astrology.
Have a good one.
Namaste.